In this video, I'm going to provide an overview for the exercises in Project One and how they are interconnected. So just to begin, Project One consists of four different exercises which each build on each other. And essentially what we're going to do is begin by documenting the floor plan and furniture of an existing residential space, then develop a concept and presentation for this residential space that we could present to a client to give them a new idea for a design. And then finally, we're going to create a new furniture plan for the residential space that reflects this concept. So the first exercise in Project One, you can see on the next slide. And you can see here, I've got two floor plans that fit or can be used as an example for this. The first one, of course, is one you've already probably seen before. And this is the one example that I've used for a practice exercise. But just bear in mind that your floor plan or your space that you're going to be using for the first project should not be based on one that you have already used for a practice exercise. Keep in mind also that there are photographs that go along with these floor plans, but I'm not showing them here. But you can see on both of these examples, these are scanned floor plans drawn on 1/4-inch graph paper, beautiful, crisp scans with no shadows or distortions. You can see that walls, windows, and doors, or the architectural features, have been drawn correctly, and that furniture has been indicated with just crisp black lines on white paper, as well as the camera views have already been placed as well. Now, keep in mind, of course, that this is supposed to be drawn of your existing space with photographs added for reference for your instructor. And now that you've got this drawn, you can go ahead and move on to the next step. Exercise 2, which is the next step, is a furniture inventory for a residential space. And an inventory of furniture is created by designers so that they can document the client's existing furniture, both where it is, what it looks like, and how big it is. And this can be useful if you want to reuse some of your client's furniture in a design, whether it's for this one or a design for a different room or space, or if you need to match something to an existing piece of furniture. And so you can see here on the left-hand side is our floor plan that we've seen many times before, but what has been added are furniture designations. And so each piece of furniture, and lucky for us, there's only 3 in here, have been given a furniture designation that corresponds to the furniture inventory template that's been provided in the assignment. Now you can see here that the furniture inventory template is broken up into different categories: seating, storage, tables, art and accessories, etc. And so I've isolated the pieces of furniture within this room and taken photographs and cropped them and put the image within the table of the furniture inventory. Then I've also given it a descriptor. And so what that means is I have given it a little what we call key designation. So seating is S, and of course the bed, not exactly seating, but that's the best category it fits into now, is S because it's in the seating category -1, and that's because it's the first one that I've counted. Now, if there were other chairs in here, they would be S2, S3, etc. Then you can see, looking over at the furniture inventory, that I have one of these S1 king beds. I've also included the dimensions and a description of the material and finish. The dresser and the nightstand are both storage units, and so the first part of their furniture designation is ST, which is short for storage. The dresser is the first one, and the nightstand is the second one. And you can see here on my furniture inventory, I have one of each of those. And you can see I provided the dimensions and the material as well. Now you'll do the same thing for all of the furniture pieces in your space. You may have different ones, of course, or you may have more, but just try to put them in the categories that most fit. If you want to add an additional category to your furniture inventory, you're welcome to, but just be sure that you have a really good photograph, that the description and key designation is reflected both in the inventory itself and on the furniture plan. And also be mindful of how you're writing your dimension formats. You can see here, I have mine in inches with capital letters abbreviating width, depth, and height. You can also expand out the feet and inches of pieces of furniture. So 66 inches could also be written as 5 feet dash 6 inches if you like, but just be sure that it's very clear which ones are the width, depth, and height. Okay, so now that you've created your furniture inventory for your residential space, you've documented what's already there, it's now time for you to create a design concept for your client. And so you can see two design concept boards here based on the template that's provided in the assignment. Now, I've provided this template both so that it's a little bit easier to make sure that you have included everything that's required, but also because this template is really focused on good graphic design. So you can see here, before we focus on the content, if you look at the overall layout, you can see that text is aligned along the top. You can see that for each of the photos, there's a label in the lower left-hand corner so that a viewer easily knows where to look for information about the object pictured. You can also see that the margins, the outer margins are consistent, and the inner margins between the photographs are also consistent. They're a little bit thinner, but they're the same. And this gives an indication of hierarchy. And so just be aware that when you're creating a PowerPoint presentation or any kind of graphic presentation, where you put objects, you have to put them somewhere. So you might as well figure out a place to put them and arrange them so that there's not arbitrary placement. So align the bottoms and the sides of all these photographs and make sure that they're labeled consistently. Okay, you can see that we also have a concept image on the left presentation, as well as based on the requirements of the assignment, all of the things that are needed. So if you look at the assignment, the first thing that you need to do is select two new pieces of furniture for this space. And you can see I've selected a new vanity table and a new nightstand. And I selected those from the list of resources that's provided in the assignment. Same thing with the new wall color and flooring. The assignment calls upon you to open up the resources for finishes and select two new finishes for your client space so that you're not only just replacing furniture, but finishes as well. Now you can see here to the left of those finishes, I have the preliminary floor plan. Now this is the resulting floor plan from exercise 4. And if you don't have if for whatever reason you do not have the floor plan completed by the time you're supposed to finish this assignment and submit it, you can always put a placeholder in here if you like. Now, looking at the right presentation, this is from a student and they follow the template almost exactly. You can see here the presentation itself follows really good graphic design. However, if it were me, I would have brought the swatch for the wood flooring, for the new flooring, and aligned that with the chair sitting next to it. You can also see that this student went above and beyond and brought in several more new pieces of furniture than were required, but this student did not bring in the two finishes that were required. This student only brought in one, the flooring. So it's important to follow the directions so that you really give your client what it is that they're asking for. You can also see that the student repurposed not a piece of furniture, but an accessory, which is the existing artwork. And although it is repurposing one of the client's objects, it doesn't have as much of a direct impact on the floor plan as keeping a new piece of furniture would. But other than that, for the most part, the alignment of the images is pretty good. The placement of the labeling is excellent, and overall the scan and presentation looks nice. Okay, let's move on to exercise 4. So exercise 4 is the last component of this project. And you might be wondering why there's a separate assignment for the exercise 4 if the floor plan appears on exercise 3. And the reason is because the deadlines of these two elements might be different depending on your instructor, but also in exercise 3, we're really looking at an overall evaluation of the selections as well as the graphic design, whereas exercise 4 is really focused on the presentation of the new furniture plan. And so it's important to remember here that the new shapes on the floor plan should reflect the new selections. So you can see here on the floor plan to the left, that new vanity table that I selected is now drawn on the floor plan. It's a different size than the dresser was at the very beginning. You can see here that the nightstand, even though it's almost exactly the same shape as the one that was already there, it's slightly different. It's a square, not a rectangle, and it's the new one that I selected as well. So you can see here that the shapes of the furniture has changed slightly. The arrangement did not, but yours could if you want to. Also keep in mind that these are somewhat mysterious rectangles, and so they have been labeled because there's not enough context for them. The vanity table definitely needs a label because it would be hard for someone to know what that was without any more information. We can guess that the nightstand is a nightstand because it's next to a bed, and that's where we put nightstands. But I labeled mine here because I wanted to draw attention to the fact that it was new, again, because it was so close in shape to the existing one. But your furniture shapes may be slightly different and curved and bring in all sorts of new elements. And so this more extraneous labeling may not be necessary. Also keep in mind here that the texture has been added to the floors that reflect the new finishes. And so you may want to add stipples for carpeting or use a ruler to create straight lines for planks or tiles if you choose. Now, the student's version to the right also is a really nice example. You can see that the texture is coming in a little bit lighter, either because it was drawn with a pencil or it was drawn on the underside of translucent paper, so it's not quite as dominant or distracting as my example. And either one works for me. The one thing, though, that I do want to draw your attention to that I would change is I would connect the text for things like desk, dresser, and artwork. Connect those to the object with a leader line like you can see in the example at left, because having them float out sort of not quite next to or not on top of what they're referring to and not connected by a leader line makes them very difficult, not very difficult. It makes it so that the viewer has to just spend a little bit more mental energy trying to connect those labels to the object. And we don't want our viewers to have to think about that kind of thing. So make sure that you connect text to object with leaders. And also keep in mind that there's a mixture of there's a mixture of capital and lowercase letters in the labels in this example, and we should write in all capital letters. So now you've seen an overview of all 4 exercises required for project 1, and you can see that they all build on each other with, all different elements coming together to replicate a very common designer experience, which is to take an existing room or space, document the existing space and the existing furniture elements, create a new design concept, and then begin to reflect that in a new set of drawings.